votes. And as of late last night, they didn't have them. The president is going to the Hill today to convince some of those members to go on the side of passing that bill. And just moments ago, I spoke with House Majority Leader Steny. Congressman, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Bill. Good to be with you.
Well, we'll start with the $1 trillion question. How many votes do you have?
We're going to have 218 plus, which is what we need.
You'll have those by tonight?
We'll have them by the time we vote, yes.
You will, okay. We were with Speaker Pelosi the day you unveiled this bill. You were there, but what was striking was all the Democrats who weren't. Progressives who think it's too watered down, and Bluedogs who think it's too expensive, and abortion opponents who didn't like the language, and illegal immigration was an issue. Is there? What was the biggest hurdle here in the 11th hour? Who did you have to convince?
Well, I think the biggest hurdle was convincing, as you point out, both progressives and Bluedogs that the compromises that have been reached, the legislation that's been fashioned, is in fact good for the country, good for their constituents, good for small business, good for their families. And I think we've done that. Obviously, when you put a piece of legislation together this large, there are many different views as to how that can be done. But what we've done is fashion a piece of legislation that we think does accomplish the objective of providing affordable, quality health care for all Americans, and that was our intent.
If you have 218 plus, as you say, will you call the White House and tell the president he doesn't need to come up today?
Oh, no, we're pleased to have the president come up. The president clearly is excited about today, as we are. After all, for a century almost, Theodore Roosevelt to this president have been saying that we need to make sure that all Americans have affordable health care they can count on. And this day is a day which I think many generations have waited for a very long time. So the president's going to come up. He's going to talk to us about this objective. This was an objective that he talked about during the course of the campaign, said he was going to get accomplished. But one ought to also remember that most of the Republican candidates, indeed almost all of the Republican candidates, as well as all the Democratic candidates in last year's primary, indicated that this was an objective that they wanted to accomplish. We are on the path of doing just that.
This week, we learned that the unemployment rate now nationally tops double digits. It's above 10% as well. And, of course, there were the elections. Republicans won some key gubernatorial seats. How would you characterize how that affects your caucus, the minds of those, guys who are running, men and women running in those conservative states?
Well, first of all, let me say with respect to the unemployment rate of 10.2%, we're very disappointed in that, as you can well imagine. While the loss of jobs has decreased almost every month since the passage of the Recovery and Reinvestment Act, it's still too high, and the number of unemployed is still too high. We certainly need to focus on that and work very hard to bring those numbers down. Now, in terms of the election bill that you asked me about, we were heartened, I will tell you, in the House of Representatives, because in both of the congressional races in which federal issues were the focus, and our two candidates were for health care reform, they're both going to vote for health care reform today.
Steny, Democrat from Maryland, we appreciate you getting up early with us this morning, which you were going to do anyway, but we'll be watching the vote today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Good to be with you.
And we'll be right back.
Good Morning America is brought to you by Walmart. Save money, live better. Walmart.